Great. Well, we're here this morning with Chris Bax of Bax Botanics, and Chris is going to talk us a little bit about his experiences through COVID. But first, Chris, if you'd be kind enough to introduce yourself, your business, and what you do, and the sort of clients that you have.
Of course, Chris. We have a company called Bax Botanics, and we launched just under 2 years ago. The company was set up almost exactly 2 years ago, but our product is a grown-up alcohol-free drink. So we distill it very much like you would distill a gin. So it's botanical flavors. But we don't use any alcohol in the process, so we get a really distinctively flavored layered drink, which takes the place of gin when all those times come when we can't actually have a drink. As I say, we launched the products we have two flavors, and we launched them in January 2019, and we have basically grown from there. So we sell both to the hospitality trade, which is a challenge at the moment, but also into retail, both bricks and mortar retail and online retail. And we also do direct sales from our own e-commerce website. So that's our sort of main kind of sales streams. Our big customer in retail is Booth's Supermarket. So yes. Booths, who they've been named, I think, the Waitrose of the North by somebody, but we're very happy to work with them. So Rose and I, so my wife and co-founder of the company, we're both tree huggers, really. So everything we do is kind of governed by the sustainability, both social and ecological. So working with someone like Booths, who are really good to their employees and are very supportive of local food producers, works really well for us. And they were one of our kind of key targets when we launched the product. And we were super thrilled to, I think within 2 months of us launching the product, we were on the shelves of our sort of top of our hit list as far as supermarket chains went. So we were really chuffed about that. So that's our big customer in the sort of retail, bricks and mortar retail. And then on the hospitality side, things are obviously difficult for that industry at the moment, but we sell through a number of wholesalers, but our biggest sort of retail client is the chain of bars called The Botanist, who have chains nationally, and they are quite at the forefront of producing alcohol-free alternatives to their cocktails. They quite rightly appreciate that not everybody can drink all the time, and some people never do, but they still want a really interesting, exciting and grown-up drink. And just to say that our verbena, we have two expressions, and one of them is called verbena, and that is in their eponymous botanist cocktail in the alcohol-free version.
Wowzers, that's brilliant! I'm sold already. I think I'm going to have to have a look. I'm really quite interested in the whole, alcohol-free, but the sort of gin replacement, especially, is something that I do enjoy. So. That's wonderful. So I see you've both won and you're up for quite a lot of prestigious awards. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I think awards are a really interesting thing, because they are great ways of kind of advertising your business. They're great marketing, but also by having that sort of audit of that people do on you, whether that's based on your taste or your business credentials or whatever it is, can really, really help, because it gives you great feedback, often from experts. So we're really, really keen on that way of kind of both promoting our business, but also getting great feedback from people. So our sort of pillars of our business are sustainability, great taste, innovation and authenticity. And so we tend to apply for awards that fit those pillars. So we're very, very lucky to have won a Global Good Award for our social and environmental sustainability. So we're really chuffed at that. We got the bronze medal in the new business category this year, which was fantastic. So that's a world, it's a world award, so we're up against people from all over the world. And that reflected the way we do business, both, I say, how we treat people, but also how we source all our products, whether it's the glassware or the way we cool our water or all the different things. So that recognised us for that. And then we have a Great Taste Award for for the sea buckthorn version, which is, we're actually one of the only alcohol-free distilled drinks that have got that taste award. I think as a true distilled drink, we're probably the only one that's got that award.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting. And then really exciting one, it is an innovation award. So it's the World Beverage Innovation Awards. And we entered the category. So sometimes we like to change it up a little bit. So they do have an alcohol-free drinks category. We could have gone for that, but I thought, well, why don't we try and punch a bit above our weight? And rather than going for the alcohol-free category, I went for the adult premium drink category. And that puts us up against every alcohol distiller maker in the world. So Diageo, Grant's, all of them.
Amazing.
And we are in the final four for the adult premium drink with our Verbena, which we're over the moon about. As I say, it's interesting, and I think it's reflective of the alcohol-free sort of market at the moment, that an alcohol-free brand, in fact, 2 alcohol-free brands are in the adult premium drink category final four.
That's great.
There's us and one other. There's an alcoholic coffee, and then a Grant's whiskey produce, or that their company produce a rum which is made from discarded banana skins, which is, again, they're all a really interesting product. But whether we win or not to be in the final four in the world in our second year for a product made in Yorkshire, we're absolutely over the moon with that.
That's wonderful. That's just great to say, and I love the fact that you decide to punch above your weight and go for it. And as you say, being in that top four is brilliant, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for you. When do you know? When's the award ceremony? So
the award ceremony is, it's like everything at the moment, it's online. It's at a big, what would have been a great big drinks conference in Germany called Bobial, and I think that's how you pronounce it. But anyway, a big drinks conference. So that's actually the 12th of November, I believe, that comes out. And then actually this week we're in the final four for the final 8 for the Great British Food Awards alcohol-free drink category, and both our flavours got it to the shortlist. So that's on the 29th, so you can keep your fingers crossed for that as well.
I'll make a note of that, and please keep us posted. That'd be wonderful to find that Yorkshire Business has achieved those awards. Brilliant. So a bit later on, we're going to talk about the future and the brightness that clearly is coming for you. But if it's okay, I'd like to ask a few questions about where we are right now. So looking back over the last 8 months or so, how has the COVID outbreak affected you?
Well, I think it's been a really interesting time because there's been some negativity, but I think you've got to be of the mindset that you've got to try and find the positives in it. So we undoubtedly at the beginning of lockdown had a huge hit on sales, and it was, to be frank with you, it was scary. It's there's no other way of putting it. We're a young business. We were just getting some traction in the market. I just had meetings with a very large supermarket chain, and literally overnight that changed. They suspended all their new product development. They weren't onboarding any new products. So all that work went out the window. Plus there was an obvious hit in sales because hospitality closed down. So that side of the business was effectively no longer there. And retail as well. Initially, I think everybody decided they were going to hit the hard liquor. In fact, it's interesting, actually, they didn't. The British public didn't hit hard liquor. They hit wine and beer. Wine and beer sales went through the roof at the start. Spirit sales, gin was doing really well before lockdown, but then struggled. So I guess our alternative, so spirits suffered throughout a lot of lockdown, but beer and wine sales were huge.
Yeah. Both
alcoholic beers and wines, but also alcohol-free beers and wines did really, really well right from the beginning of lockdown. We didn't see it in spirits. The whole spirit market was slightly depressed at the start of that.
Yeah.
We kind of then sat down and thought, right, then what we're going to do, and we sat down and basically put together a worst case scenario cash flow situation and thought, right, and how long do we think this is going to last? Can we survive it? And realized that we could, particularly with the help that the government gave. It allowed us to keep going. And then so we actually, rather than sort of sitting back and waiting for anything to happen, we thought, right, well, we've got to get out there and we've got to be in a really, really strong position when we come out the other end. So what we're going to do is when we're not sort of consumed by other things, we'll network. And what we actually found was, after the initial shock, when everybody kind of went back into their shells, people who we found it very hard to get to talk to during normal business time were more open to having a conversation. They weren't open to having a conversation about when they were going to buy product, but they were very open to having a conversation about what the possibilities might be in the future, or even just to take a sample of our drinks, and they had time to sit down and actually think about it, as opposed to fit it into 1,000 other things that they had to do that day. And we realized that fairly quickly. And so we really worked on that. So we sort of looked at our own operation, and it gave us a chance to look at some longer term projects that always get pushed to the back of the queue when your day-to-day kind of business gets in the way. So we looked at that, but we also, as I say, spent a lot of the time talking to everybody we could in the industry. So right away from bartenders through to bar owners, through to, large retailers, and spoke to as many people as we could, got as many samples out there as we could. And as I say, it was a great opportunity to actually do those things and get out there, and people were open to it. So it was actually quite an exciting time. But it wasn't easy. Trading wasn't easy. But we could see some positivity in it.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. We were talking here, and there's a phrase, pattern interrupt, which is used familiar with Darren Bradley, and it's just changing the normal pattern of thinking.
Yeah.
And Charlie, who I know you've met, talked about the idea that COVID-19 has been a global pattern interrupt. Everyone isn't thinking the way they were thinking 12 months ago, so they're more open to. Especially for people with a vision, with an idea, with action, even just people choosing to take action rather than sitting in a dark room. And so those of us that choose to actually say, come on, let's find a way through, irrespective of whether that means doing business or not right now, the door's open. And I think it's realizing that really it creates a massive opportunity for people that take action and choose to talk to people that perhaps 12 months ago were particularly interested, or were too busy. Let's put it too busy. That's
absolutely. I think it literally. We found one of, because we are new to the drinks business. I mean, we literally were so wet behind the ears when we started. I mean, it was. Naive doesn't even come close. But it is an incredibly busy, dynamic business, and people just don't have any time. It's just incredible to get the opportunity to talk to people, which we have had over that those months. And I think what I assumed that everybody would be doing that, but talking to people that I know in the business, buyers, spirits buyers who we already deal with, and they said you'd be amazed the number of businesses who just went, okay, then we'll just shut down.
Yeah.
And literally shut the doors, locked the doors, and went home. And I was like, no, surely they can't do that. And they went, no, that's what they've done. And they're waiting for it to come back. And then they think they're going to be able to walk back in and be at the place that they were when this started. And he said, I'm going out and telling them they can't do that, because they, as buyers and as consumers, we want to see you doing stuff. So, we do quite a lot with social media, and we intensified that. So we were talking to our customers the whole time, direct customers, but also our wholesale customers look at our social media too. So the Instagram thing stepped up. We started a small YouTube channel, and we were working with other manufacturers and getting a cocktail mixologist to actually do videos using all our products, and then we're getting that out there, and literally talking to. I think it was just that case of being in communication, and you had to just use every possible type of communication you could, and obviously you couldn't walk into places. I mean, my job last year at this time, I was going from bar to bar to bar, meeting people, shaking their hand, giving them drinks, all that. I can't do that. I couldn't do that. I haven't been able to do that since March.
Yeah.
I think I've had, in a kind of bar hotel environment, I've had two meetings since March.
Right. Yeah.
And that's it as face to face. And they were because I had to go physically to the place because I needed to see it.
Yeah.
But I think you've just got to keep talking to people, and I think that's what we did, and I think that's really, really helped us, because we have we've shown growth on year during the second half of the pandemic. We've actually shown considerable growth on last year, and I think that is all down to communication and to just making sure that we're in a really good place, and we're still doing, new some people aren't looking at new product development. And I know it's going to be really hard for us to get with new product into a lot of places in the next few months, but that hasn't stopped us doing new product development, even, changing packaging so it's easier and more cost effective to send it out through courier and postal services, so even looking at that, and how we package it, how we link with other businesses. So home cocktail making has absolutely gone crazy during lockdown.
Right.
I mean, it is a massive thing. If you put up, home bar or something into Instagram, the number of people doing it, and they're doing videos, they're doing recipes, everything.
Brilliant.
But those people need product to arrive at their house, and if we can do that in a more cost-effective and more sustainable way by using less CO2 to transport things, by you finding lighter packaging and more eco-friendly. I mean, premium glass is actually a good product as far as people understand how to recycle it, and quite often our bottles are very high quality, so they reuse it. They put something else into it afterwards.
Yes,
so,
great.
But I think that the kind of looking at that new product development has been really important too, and how you can work with other people. And I think I guess my big kind of takeaway from the last few months is talk to people and network with people. I'm saying all this. My Rose is in the office too, and Rose is far better at doing that and is far more dynamic at doing that than me. So I'm using the royal we as the company when I'm talking about we do it.
That's okay.
My kind of side, I suppose I'm a little bit more on the kind of operation side and technical side, but yeah, I mean, even I found the same thing, and being able to get hold of people that I couldn't normally get hold of was a real boom. It was a definite positive of that situation.
Yeah, okay. Certainly that's what we found as well. It's been really, really fascinating. What interesting? What other key adaptations have you had to make over this period?
I think that the main adaptation is to look outside our one of our core businesses, which was the hospitality industry. We've had to push particularly onto looking at online retail. So that's what we've been really pushing, because that's what's been selling well, and that's who's been selling drinks very well over the last few months. It's online retail. So whether that's through dedicated online retailers for drinks, we do, so people like Master of Malt, and then there's online dedicated for kind of alcohol-free drinks. So people like Wise Bartender and Alcohol Free Co, who specialize just purely in online retail for those things. Yes. So that is, I think, the most adaptation. I mean, we're a really small company. I mean, I kind of think we were lucky to be at the point that we were when this has happened, because I think if we'd taken another step, or the step we were looking at taking, then our fixed overheads would have been considerably higher, and it would have been a more difficult task to kind of roll with the blows that have happened over the last few months. Because we're small, because we can react very quickly, it put us in a really very good position for dealing with the various problems. So yeah, it's I think the biggest adaptation really was just to look at, we didn't have to adapt our processes. We do most of the two of us do most of the stuff ourselves. We manufacture ourselves. So that didn't have to change too much, because we were in our little bubble anyway. But as far as the market and as far as the business had to change, it was a refocus, because rather than looking constantly at getting it into bars and hotels, we had to kind of put that on the back burner. And that's still, that definitely came back. It's suffering again now because there's just so much uncertainty. I don't think people know where they can go or who they can go with, or it depends whether you're in this postcode or that postcode or whatever. I know, talking to people within the industry, they're saying that the people are just staying away because they just don't understand what they can and can't do. So that's it did, as I picked up, it's bounding slightly again now, but yeah, retail, by refocusing on retail and particularly online retail, I think it has bolstered the sales, and it hasn't picked up everything from hospitality, but it's certainly picked up a fair bit from what was hospitality.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And looking at what the adaptations you made, the adjustments you made, what will you keep on doing once we get through the other side of this? What are the things that you've gone, yes, we should keep doing that?
So I think that I think it was the right market to go for. I think that people will continue to buy through online retail. I think a lot of people have got used to having things delivered to their house. Yes. So I think that's really important. The other thing that I didn't really look at, one thing we've had a chance to look at, and something that is exciting, is the international business.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's amazing when you look at some other places in the world, how the new normal is a little bit more normal than it is here. So we have our first retailer in Manhattan that's just come online in the last couple of weeks. And I was speaking to him last week, and he said, really, people are going out, they're buying, they are going to bricks and mortar retail and buying, they're going to bars, they're going to, obviously the way those bars look and the way that those bars are working are slightly different, but there are people on the street out there. The shop is in the Lower East Side, a really trendy area, sort of Bowery, lots of bottle shops and bars doing craft beer, all that sort of thing. And he said it's just still happening there. You know, he's an ex investment banker who's decided to sort of change I think he might be still doing bits and pieces, but he's doing this alcohol-free company there, and that's really interesting, because you do look at other parts of the world and they are definitely not closed for business. Absolutely not closed for business. So whether that's, so we're looking at the moment at markets through Europe, but also Middle East, Australia, America, and those places are open for business. And that is something that we probably felt a little bit too small to deal with before this happened. But I think what's happened has made us, you know, spread the net a bit wider and look a bit wider for where the possibilities are. And
that makes sense.
And we've actually seen what the opportunities are and actually thought, well, actually, we can do this. And we should continue to do it. And so that's actually a big focus for us at the moment. Really interesting that currently the Department of International Trade is, understandably, with what's happening with the pandemic, but also with new trade deals going on around the world and the Brexit and all those things, they're really keen to develop export business. So there is help available for that. And they're incredibly proactive. You know, we haven't dealt a great deal with government offices before, and you know, you, like a lot of people, you know, you look at government, you think it's going to be this big unwieldy thing and it's just for big businesses. But honestly, if people are looking to enter that international market, I would really encourage them to look to the DIT, because they have advisors. They have advisors that are based in Yorkshire and are incredibly knowledgeable and really super helpful. I couldn't say that enough. So the international business, I think, wouldn't have happened quite so fast if it wasn't for the previous 8 months. But it's something that we can see huge positivity in going forward, and something we can keep pushing, which we probably wouldn't have been pushing at this stage.
Brilliant. It's fantastic. And is there anything, looking back to March time, that you would have done sooner?
Would have done sooner. We actually moved quite quickly with it, I think.
Good.
I think that I don't want to sort of sing our praises too much, but you know what I mean? I don't think there's anything that I would have done differently.
Cool.
Because I think we were, the most important thing was to react to what was happening around you and understand what was happening around you. So there was part of our business that it was really, really clear had gone, and that was hospitality, because not everyone, you know, it was literally a legal requirement to close, so that had gone. There were questions around that we didn't have to deal with in the end, but other manufacturers in this sector have had to, and that is people trying to return product on quite a large scale. I know people who were having to deal with that. We were lucky we didn't have to get into that, but I think maybe having it's that something to deal, a strategy to deal with that, if it had happened, hadn't crossed my mind, and it would have been a really good idea to have that in place. And I think that's something that, you know, I've thought about since, and have that in place. As I say, we didn't have to deal with it, but I think it would have been a very, very good thing to have in place. But I mean, you know, you look at it and people, even business interruption insurance and stuff like that, they've gone, well, we're not paying out. You know, there's so many people in a position of having paid business interruption insurance, and the first time their business gets properly interrupted, and they've gone, oh no, you're not insured against that. So I think, you know, having having a problem, we've got to learn from that problem and make sure we've got something in place to deal with it next time it happens. So I think that I would have liked to have done, but as it was, it didn't have a detrimental effect. But we very closely monitored what was happening. You know, we kept talking to people, as I've said, and I think having that doomsday cash flow scenario was a really interesting thing to have, and that we've got we had an angel investor in the company when we started, and he rang me when it all happened, and he was like, what you need to do is literally put down the worst case scenario, see how long you can last, you know, see how long Rose and you can last, you know, make sure that it's literally put down the worst case scenario. And that was very, very sound advice, very sound advice, because it gave us a benchmark. And then not only did it work on a business level, it worked on a kind of morale level, because when it didn't hit that, when it was constantly above that cash flow, it actually made you think, well, actually, this is okay. We're dealing with this. We're surviving this. We're going to come out the other end of it. And we're going to come out of the end really strong. And so that's what we did. So yeah, I think although I'm sure we did make mistakes, there's nothing that sort of screams out to me that says you should have done that. Right. We had really great advice, and I think it worked.
That's fantastic. And what would you say you've learned about yourself over this period?
Oh, I think we've both learned to be a lot more robust in what we do. I think resilience and the resilience you need. I mean, we've set up obviously Taste the Wild we set up before, but it grew very organically, and it was not a physical product. And having a physical product and manufacturing and taking a physical product through to market is unbelievably tough.
Yeah,
it's the half. I've set up businesses before. I was a chef before. I had catering companies. I've had restaurants. You know, all those things, and I have never set up a business that's harder than taking a physical product, manufacturing it, and taking it to market. That has been a huge challenge and a huge roller coaster. And I have to say that, you know, we weren't as resilient as this 18 months ago. You know,
really?
we're not 100% resilient now, but you know what I mean? It's like we've got a lot better at it. And I think it puts things into perspective when you do have problems. And what's been really interesting, I think, about the whole pandemic is that everybody's pretty much been in the same boat. I mean, I know there's some people who've done very, very well out of it, and I know people have done really well out of it, and not from a sort of profiteering angle. It's just because their business, whatever it was, fitted the particular, you know, it carried on working, or it was thrust into the limelight because of the situation. Yeah, I do think everybody was in the same boat, and everyone was really understanding of the situation that everyone else was in, which was quite a surprise in some cases, I think. So, yeah, I think it has been a little bit of a reset button. It's like you were saying earlier on, you know, it's that sort of disruptive element that causes change, So yeah, I think those are I think being adaptive to change and becoming more resilient are probably the two things that I've taken.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
My favourite quote at the moment is from Charles Darwin, funnily enough, which is obviously going back a very, very long time, from The Origin of Species. And he said it's not the strongest or the most intelligent of the species that survive, but the ones that are most adapted to change. And I don't think a quote has been more relevant to right now as ever. You know,
no, I agree.
And it's great, and it's just that and adaptation, I suggest, and resilience come together, because it is about rolling with the punches, accepting the new norm, accepting it as both a challenge but an opportunity as well, and seeing what the opportunity is. And clearly you've done that.
Yeah, well, I think it is very important. I think in any business, I'm a believer that information and knowledge is power. And I think the more you understand what's going on around you, the better decisions that you can make. And I think you have to be really open to make those decisions as well. So although I am naturally quite resistant to change, I think, I suppose in my own life, I think in business, providing you set within your parameters. One of the most important, I mentioned the pillars earlier on. We use those pillars all the time. We have our core values, and everything comes back to those. So
Brilliant.
Although we're changing, we always come back. We don't change outside of what we are, because there's those core values, and those core values potentially could change too. But there needs to be a pretty damn good reason to change those core values. They're not cast in stone, but they are nearly cast in stone, And I think as long as you can be dynamic and you can look at change, but you've got to really understand who you are and what your core business and your core values are.
I agree. I think in general, adaptation is around the values. It's not adapting the values, if that makes sense.
No, 100%.
One thing I believe for a long time is good relationships, both business and personal, come from a match of goals. We both want the same thing to happen, but great relationships come with a match of values. We both think the same things are important. So being clear on our values and using them as a core to everything we do in the business, and including and especially the marketing of it, is really, really key, because we'll attract like-minded people. And
I think even customers, I think, it's amazing how a customer who has the same core values, I mentioned booths earlier on, they have the same core values as us. They're looking for sustainability, they're looking at local produce, they're looking at all these different things. And it means that there is a commonality about what we're trying to achieve. They're doing it on a multi-million pound level and we're doing it on a much smaller level, but they respect what we do and we really respect what they do. Rose got interviewed the other day, and it was by a Yorkshire sort of more craft business type organisation. And one of the questions was asked was like, who are your kind of heroes in business? And I think a lot of people would have looked for a small artisan producer, much like ourselves. But Rose actually mentioned booths, and I think it was really interesting because, and I was quite surprised when she told me that she'd said this as myself, but I completely get it. And it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with somebody down the road, somebody that's huge, something that's small, or somebody who's in the other side of the world. If you've got that commonality of values and core beliefs, then your business relationship is going to be so much stronger. I mean, it's so hard to deal with somebody. Imagine a small brand that suddenly has to start dealing with a great big sort of conglomerate of I don't know, Diageo came to us tomorrow and said, well, we want to take you under our wing and work with that. Financially, it would probably be amazing for us, but could we do it? That is something we'd have to go back to those core values and ask them questions, whether they could adapt to look at our core values as well, despite them being, multi-billion pound operation and us being much, tiny. I think it's just as important that we got those things on the table straight away.
Yeah, I think I completely agree, and I think that's the discussion needs to be had. It's on a match of values, because I mean I'm sure there are plenty of businesses. Well, there are plenty of businesses out there where their values are perhaps suspect, but there's also plenty of businesses out there that have been very successful because of very strong values. So it doesn't. I meet a lot of people that think you have to undermine your values as you grow because that's what you do. But I really don't believe that and find that actually the more we use our values as our strength, it's a structure for growth, because people know what they're getting. They know this is the brand they want to associate themselves with, not just for the product, but for the core values. That's why, different business, I would suggest, like Apple, Simon Sinek in his book, Start With Why, talks about Apple a lot, and about that being a lifestyle brand. Now, there may be some other corporate stuff that goes on as well, but it's a brand that it's a set of values that people associate with, or a large group of people associate with. And it's just getting a match, and there isn't any rights or wrongs. There's just a match, and it's being clear that if we attract people with like-minded values, then we're going to typically have long-term successful relationships. So I think that's
just an easy relationship.
You're
not banging heads. You're not banging each other's heads all the time. I mean, it's when you think about it, it's the simplest thing in the world. It's like, why you wouldn't be friends with somebody who had opposing views to? Well, you might be if you liked arguing, which I know friends who don't get on with that. But you probably wouldn't choose to develop with people who had deeply opposing views to yourself. So why do it in business? It doesn't make sense. And I think you're absolutely right about brands. I think the people are looking to. That's one of the other reasons one of our pillars is authenticity, is because I think there's an awful lot out there which appears to be something but is not, and I think people are getting wise to that now. There was the big scandal about all the supermarkets calling their own brand butter or milk or something by a name of a farm that didn't exist, but it was the implication that it was a product from a farm, when really it's just going to to loads of different farms from all sorts of different, with all sorts of different values, being all put into a great big vat and then bottled or made into butter. And there was a big scandal on that, and I think people now want to go for something where they actually can see a backstory, and we find it time and time again that people really like the fact that it's us, it's Rose and I. We have a background, we've between us, we've got 3 decades or more of working with plant flavors. It's they want that, and they actually see it's not a product. There's an awful lot of products out there. Some taste good, some don't. There's an awful lot of them out there that are made by flavor houses who somebody goes, I really want to have a adult soft drink that tastes of tobacco and chocolate, or whatever they come up with, and it's put together with little drops of flavor drops, and then they go, right, and there's your product. We'll charge you this much a litre, and we'll bottle it for this much. Ours, literally, we develop the recipes ourselves, and we make it ourselves. The actual ingredients and actual method are quite secret, because it's a great product, and there's an awful lot of people would like to know how we did it.
Sure.
But people like the fact that it's authenticity, and if we're doing social media, some of the most popular posts we ever put on are Rose and I doing stuff that is related to the business, and people actually really like that kind of authenticity and human beings behind it. And I say we're also very clear about what our kind of beliefs are and everything. So I think we get customers through that, definitely, as well as the products tasting great. I think exactly like you said, people want to associate with a nice lifestyle.
Or the people that we're best attracting. That's the key thing. It's and if we don't put it into our marketing, our values, then we will naturally get a random distribution of people with different values, and that's natural. But if we put our values front and center of our marketing, then we're more likely to attract a larger proportion of people with a match of values who like what we did. And it's, as you say, it's just easier. And a number of businesses, I say, well, where are your values? I'm just looking at your website. Where can I find your values? And well, we haven't put them on. But so how can people choose you as opposed to anybody else without knowing what your values are? So brilliant. So just interesting. I mean, it feels like you're set for growth. What challenges do you foresee through the growth process over the next 2 or 3 years?
I think it's probably the challenges are the sort of scaling of the production side of things. So right from the beginning, we we never envisage sort of sitting and having a sort of very small business. We think there is great scope for what we're doing. And we always looked right from the beginning of making it scalable. So we know it is scalable. I think financing growth is always a challenge, but we're very lucky. We've got some options for that. Right. But I think really it's this adapting as well. That I think as our roles adapt and we bring people on board to do the jobs that we're doing now, I think it's finding our roles within that business and knowing what to relinquish and what to keep ourselves in order to keep those pillars the same, keep it authentic, because obviously there's going to be a time very soon when Rose and I don't make the product ourselves. We intend to keep it in-house, but we're not going to be actually there on a production line, or not all the time anyway. So finding our roles within a growing business, I think that's going to be an interesting challenge for both of us, really. I'm sure a lot of people find it when they have a business and it's kind of a bit like a bit of a baby to them, and it's, despite the fact that they have to relinquish control over certain parts of it, it's very hard to relinquish control, and you have to have great trust in the team that you put together. So I think finding that team is going to be an interesting challenge, but something that's probably incredibly exciting at the same time, and everything else that goes with growth. So I think the sort of finance side of growth is obviously one thing, but I think probably the sort of human resource side of making sure we get great people, or great partners, whether we do things in-house or outsource some of the things, whether that's marketing or whatever. It's about developing that team, and I think that's always a challenge. There is going to be, undoubtedly, you make mistakes along the way, but I think creating that team is incredibly important. Brilliant. Again, it goes back to the goals and values thing. You just got to make sure the people you get on board has the same ideas that you have, and we believe in treating people really well and rewarding people really well for doing, for doing good things. Brilliant. And making sure that they are, don't do bad things, while making sure they're really well trained and really well resourced to do the job they need to do. And I think, as a manager, when you do get to managing staff, that's what you've got to do is find great people and then give them the resources they need to do their job to the best of their ability.
100%. One of the key principles we operate where we help people recruit is that most people recruit on experience but sack on attitude, if that makes sense. Yeah. So our proposition is, why don't we start with recruiting on attitude? Because with a base level of experience, a certain qualification, you can train the rest in. But if someone comes with a poor attitude, they won't be interested in learning anything. So recruiting people, again, through your values and your vision, are going to attract people that want to work with you, want to help you achieve your vision and your goals, and want to do it your way. So absolutely. That's where core values is actually, it just pervades everything. I don't know if you read the book Start With Why, but if you haven't, it's a brilliant book to...
Called what, sorry?
Start With Why. W-H-Y by a guy called Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. It's a really cool book. I'll send you a TED Talk link if that's useful, because he's condensed it down to 19 minutes in his TED Talk. If you're a busy person like I'm sure you are, then it might help, but that would be useful. And the other thing that, for us, in terms of helping people grow and work with business owners, is Brian Tracy would say that most people, focus on yourselves and everyone in an organization spending most of their time doing the three things they love and they're really good at.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't matter if it's actually, still taking control of, the product. It's do the stuff that you love, because if you love it, you're probably good at it. And if you're good at it, you probably love it. So it's just finding that stuff, and the stuff that we don't like, someone else will love. That's the thing we often have to get over, is we think, well, that's horrible stuff. Why would somebody want to do that? That's because we're all different. So for everything that you really, really don't want to do, there's someone there will go, oh, please. So,
oh no, I 100% agree. I mean, I've experienced working in teams and
yes,
leading teams, and even Rose and I, when you look at our skills and what we like doing, they're very different in some ways. Certainly the way we approach jobs, and it's incredibly complementary. And I think it's about putting that together in a team. So I tend to have I have a strategic mind and one that looks at a big picture, but I'm absolutely awful at perhaps making the final thing happen, and certainly being neat and tidy and making sure every detail's looked at. I'm awful at, and I put my hand up in the air and say that I'm awful at that. Rose is fantastic at that.
Great.
So she will literally pick things to pieces, which sometimes is incredibly frustrating, but it means that the final product, whatever that is, whether it's an actual product or just a report or a sales pitch, whatever it is, it means that in the end that product is far, far better. And I think that's what you need. This is a team of 2, but I think you can do that in a team of 20 or a team of 200 or a team of 2,000, providing you've got the right people there. And we really believe that. And I think you've got to find people who love what they do and find and be specialists in what they do. One of the most frustrating things I've found in my business life is that, for instance, salespeople who are the best salespeople, and the only way that people feel that they can promote them is turn them into managers.
Yes.
And they're awful managers because they're salespeople. And so what you need to do is find out how that salesperson can further their career and make more salary if that's what they want to do, whatever, but keep doing what they're really good at. And I think it's missed so many times within business that they go, oh yeah, they're a brilliant salesman. Make them the manager of that area, or put them in charge of this team. And they don't know how to teach a team. You need someone who runs a team. You need a team who's good, someone that's a trainer and and an inspirer. That person who's running the team doesn't even necessarily need to be a salesman.
100%. Management is its own.
Yeah, it's exactly. But so many people get good at what they do and then be made managers, which they're utterly awful at.
And it's across the board, because it isn't just sales. It's
I know it's everything.
Because management needs to be taught, and it isn't just a talent. You can train it, but if you don't train it, it's not going to happen. So you're absolutely, but it is different typically to doing what I do. Doing what I do is not the same as managing people doing what I do. So
absolutely.
So you bang on. So you're a big picture man. So let's finish on the big picture. What does the future look like for you guys over the next 3 to 5 years?
So I think that I know that the market is growing for alcohol-free.
Yep.
I think the world's changing. I think honestly, in the long run, this current pandemic will probably make people focus back onto what's important in life, and one of those things is their health and their well-being, whether that's physical or mental. I think, but don't get me wrong, I do drink alcohol. I'm not sort of saying that people should be teetotal. But I think looking at how we consume food and drink, whether that's alcohol, whether that's fat, whether that's sugar, whatever it is, it's going to become bigger and bigger over the next few years. So I think we are really set to enjoy some of that growth. The growth within just the alcohol-free market is huge. You just look at the figures at the moment, and they're growing by the month, really. The key thing is to get part of that business, because an awful lot of people understanding that there's growth, and so they're jumping on board. We need to keep focusing on our kind of core principles in order to make sure that people understand that amongst a sea of people who may be just looking to make a bit of a profit out of a growing industry, that we are part of the core of that industry, and we have a great product and a great story, and we have that authenticity. I do think that the international market is going to be huge for us. And so, yeah, and particularly looking at the Middle East, we have an interesting product because some of the alcohol-free drinks are de-alcoholized, but ours never touches alcohol.
Yep.
So
Yep.
for certain countries of the world and religions of the world, that's really important.
Yep. I can understand that.
But that doesn't mean that people who choose not to drink alcohol products or anything that's touched alcohol don't want something that tastes amazing and is really grown up.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we've got all the Middle East, a lot of Africa, you know, a lot of Europe to go at with that. And then the big economies like America and Australia and Britain, who have a reputation for being quite high consumers of alcohol. I think they're also looking back at themselves and thinking, hey, we need to have a bit of temperance. And so, yeah, I see us growing. I would like to, so one of the things with Rose and I is that, you know, we're both in our 50s. So we're not looking at this as a 20-year thing. We are looking at it as a shorter term thing. So I'd like to think we've developed the business and then start taking a step back from it.
Yeah.
But we already have, as I said about new product development, we already have new products in the pipeline, ready to go.
Brilliant.
It's just a case we just want to get a foothold in the market, and as soon as we've got some of the bigger markets sorted, then we'll start releasing more product, more range of product. So I can see, I suppose, in the next 3 to 5 years, we go from having two products in two sizes to almost certainly 4 products in many sizes.
Yeah.
As I say, we're looking at how to send smaller quantities out for people mixing cocktails and things like that.
Yes.
And also be in multiple markets around the world. So I think within 2 years we should be across America, Australia, and certainly UAE. I think is a great market for us, and that's something that I'm really focusing on. So that's where I see us being, really, as probably an exporter. I think export business will be bigger than domestic business within 2 to 3 years.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, a great vision. That's one. Interestingly enough, we did. My first business was in the power industry.
Right.
And that's based in Harrogate. And we did a fair bit of work eventually toward the end of before we sold the business in Texas, because obviously power, like Texas is oil, but it's also power generation. And one thing I was told, interesting enough, if it's useful, is that Texans are seen I was told by Texans that Texans are seen quite like Yorkshiremen in terms of being innately trustworthy. So people, just sort of see people that, you know, the Texans are the Yorkshire folk of the US.
We'll probably never be able to sell any drinks to them then, because it's amazing. They Yorkshiremen might be the trustworthy, but they like a drink. Selling them a premium quality, high-priced, alcohol-free drink is one of the biggest hurdles we've come across. So that's one of the reasons I think, actually, again, you know, looking at the export market, is because the Yorkshire market for our drinks is a tough sell, a really tough sell.
I've always found that Yorkshire people they tend to be a bit backward in coming forward, but they know, you know, when they see value, they invest in value. So you know, demonstrate value is key, and if we demonstrate value, then it works.
No, absolutely.
Wonderful,
excellent.
Well, look, thank you so much. It'd be absolutely fascinating. I could go on for hours, I think. So obviously wish you absolutely all the best, and it'd be great maybe to come back in a year's time and let us know how you've got on, and I'm sure you'll have
we'll be good to chat. I know I'll hopefully get to chat to Charlie again soon, but absolutely, it's been great talking to you. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris.
All right, take care.